be good for social distancing rules, though. All right. Well, it's 12:35, so I'm going to go ahead and get started because although I know all of us probably want to hang out, and we can hang out as long as we want on this Zoom, and I also want to be mindful of people's time who are on a schedule, including our panelists. So, all right. So if you guys haven't been on Zoom before, I'm going to just quickly run through the rules. I say that sounds too authoritarian, but I'm going to say it anyways. So if you are not a panelist, I'm going to mute everybody. If you're a panelist and you want to stay unmuted, you can. If you want to stay muted, except for when you're talking, the unmute button is in the lower left-hand corner. If you have a question for the panelists, please type it into the chat. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A. My target is about 45 to 60 minutes for like me just asking them questions and going through, and then having about a 30 to 45 minute Q&A kind of open mastermind conversation. Again, one of the cool things with the chat though is that definitely if there's something that pertains to that specific topic that you heard or a link to something, feel free to put it in the chat to everyone, because I think that can be really valuable for everyone, and definitely you don't have to wait until the end to put stuff in the chat. Conway, are you planning on staying on or are you leaving?
I'll stay on to admit people in for a little while longer.
Okay, cool. All right, so if there's something really obvious in the chat, panelists, you guys can keep an eye on it for me. Feel free to interrupt me or point to that. You don't have to wait for me to do it. Also, for those of you that wanted to share it or whatever, I put the link to the event where we're also streaming this as that first chat in the chat, so you can feel free to share that link with your office or with friends or whatever. They wouldn't actually have to register now that that's going live in the Facebook event as well. So. All right, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. I think we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off with allowing the panelists to introduce themselves. So hopefully if you're here, you know what you're here for, but we're here for the 10 under 40 panel. So unfortunately, Andy Dutcher wasn't able to make it at the last minute. However, other than that, we have the rest of the nine out of 10. And so why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourself. Let's start with Greg Harris, and then I'll just call on each of you guys after that. So Greg, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody just, quick 10 seconds about what you're most proud of and maybe what you're, what you feel like, you've accomplished to get you into the 10 under 40.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Greg Harris. Good to see everybody. It's been a couple of wild months since we took the photos on the rooftop, huh? Been in real estate about 6.5 years now, and been with Keller Williams Consultants the entire time. Really like the office, very friendly. We get on these Zoom meetings a couple times. Well, we have them every day, but I get them on a couple times a week. I know I miss some, but it's just good to see everybody's faces while we're cooped up in our houses, and hope to get through this all soon.
Cool. All right, Bill, why don't you go next? Lower left-hand corner. There you go.
Did you say Jill?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, my connection broke up.
That's okay.
Jill Richardson, Keller Williams, Greater Columbus. I've been in real estate for going on 10 years. It's something that I think keeps me engaged a lot, just because it's always changing. I can honestly say that I love my job, and I feel like this is what I was born to do. The 10 under 40 panel, being one of the honorees on it, was pretty cool and an unexpected surprise. And I feel like there's more to it than just sales. Just being a good, well-rounded agent has been the biggest factor for me. So.
Awesome. All right. Alexander.
Hi everyone, Alexander Buckner. I am with Keller Williams Greater Columbus as well, just like Jill. I've been in real estate since 2015. Been with Keller Williams for just a little over 2 years now. I think, yeah, just like Jill, I love being in this industry, and I'm so proud of our office and the rest of the 10 under 40 this year. We're an awesome group of guys and girls and others. So. Yeah, that's it. Well, happy to be here.
We've got some high I personalities going on here, all about the love. All right, Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Lucas with Keller Williams Classic Properties. I just hit my 3rd year in real estate in March, and I've been with Classic Properties the whole time. Just like Jill, I was kind of surprised to be named on the top 10 under 40, but I think it's a lot more than sales too. I was head of culture committee last year and did a lot of, raising money for KW Cares, our office. We had a couple unexpected things happen last year, and we were able to raise, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 for people in our office. So I was really proud of that.
Awesome. These were in no particular order, so it's just weird that those first 4 were all KW. Was not by design, because Josh, you're on the end. So Amanda Roderick.
Hi, I am Amanda Roderick. I'm with Key Realty. I've actually just been licensed, just had my 2-year anniversary. So I'm just going into my 3rd year. So I'm relatively new real estate agent, but before I became an agent, my husband and I have been investors since 2014. So I have been in the real estate world for a while. And I also worked in a company that did real estate market research and analysis studies for commercial projects. So not completely new to real estate, but am still kind of a new sales agent. And I feel similarly that I was also surprised and excited to be named on this panel. So it's been really awesome, but I'm also super involved. I like to be really involved with a lot of different organizations. So as far as committees at Columbus Realtors and also the area associations that are in my area. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Sean Hood.
Hey guys, Sean Hood. I am a realtor with Coldwell Banker King Thompson. I have been in the business since 2015. Hindsight's kind of interesting. I never even considered real estate as a career until a fellow agent kind of brought it to my attention when I was struggling with the career that I was in. So it's been a huge blessing. I've become obsessed with real estate. And I love the people, all walks of life. Keeps me on my toes because there's constantly challenges and problems and solutions to come up with. And just proud and honored to be part of this group and to be here today. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Chris?
There we go. Chris Shannon with CRT Realtors. I have been licensed since 2012, so coming up on finish up my 8th year. Like a couple others, I got into real estate just because I was an investor and got sick of having an agent do it all for me. And I've been interested in real estate probably since I was 16. I think I went to my first investment conference up in Buffalo, New York. Just got into it so I could get into houses and get paid to do investment properties, and retail career just kind of took off. So couple the retail with the investments and the team, and it's provided a living that I never thought I could ever achieve on my own. So it's been really cool to see the progression over the last 8 years.
All right. And Alexandra, do you like to go by Alexandra or Alex?
Either one. It's totally fine. Yeah. You can call me Alex if it's easier between the two of us Alexes in here.
Okay.
I was licensed while still in college in 2007, but I'm with Next Home Experience in Worthington. And so I've been licensed for a minute, but I was a full-time licensed agent for 3 years and then moved to Cleveland. And I had a real estate marketing company for 6 years. So I've really only been doing this full-time for 6 years, even though I've been licensed since 2007. I was shocked to hear that I was on this panel too, just because 2019 was the best year I've ever had, but it was not without its ups and downs. I feel like this market, there's a lot of things that are fantastic, but there's a lot of things that are hard about it too. But it's fun to ride the wave because this is a dream job. It's really a great job. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Last but not least, Josh.
Hey, Josh Nungesser with Keller Williams Excel, and I've been licensed just over 2 years. And before that, I spent 20 years in the retail industry, running Walmart stores. And I think that that's lent itself really well to me being able to help the customer, our clients. Thing I'm most probably proud about is using that freshness, that less than 3 years experience to help others. I just took a coaching position with my brokerage to help others grow their business. So I'm pretty proud of being able to help others.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate, again, you guys jumping on here, and let's dive right in. So one of the things I like to start off with is kind of goal setting, because I think even though it sounds like a lot of you guys were a little bit surprised by the fact that you were nominated, obviously you all had to submit applications. So you must have thought you had some kind of chance, because that application is not the shortest application by any means to fill out. So talk to me about what goal setting looks like for you in terms of, I know there was years in my career where it was like, man, if I just sell more houses than I did last year, like I'll be super happy. And then there's also years where, I've sat down and really put together a plan and done that. So I would love to hear from you guys, maybe if you just want to kind of jump in, anybody that wants to share, what are your goals for this year? And then I guess the follow-up question, with everything that's going on in the current market, I think it would definitely be fair to say, how have you pivoted? Have you stuck with what you put out originally, or have you already adjusted your goals based on what's happening right now?
Okay, I'll go.
I'm going to call you out.
I'll go.
Okay.
I've got pretty aggressive goals for this year. I want to do 40 transactions, which is aggressive for me. That's a big hike from my previous year, but I also want to start a team. But aside from that, so this was actually a goal of mine 2 years ago when I first got in the industry. I saw somebody's plaque hanging on the wall. It said 10 under 40. I was like, what is that thing? And that inspired me. So I think it's really important to always have a goal that you're chasing after, whether you're older than 40 or not. I think it's really important to have a thing out there to chase after. And if your goal doesn't scare you, I love the saying, if your goal doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. So I'm, as far as pivoting with the COVID situation that we're currently in, just doubling down my efforts. I'm not going to come off of that goal, because that would be taking the easy way out. And I think it's really important now just to double down and work even harder to try and achieve that.
Awesome. Greg, you're next to Josh on my screen, so I'm going to call on you next.
Okay. I'm similar to Josh in that I don't focus necessarily on an income goal. I'm more of a transactional goal. So I want to do about 30% more closings this year than I did last year. So that would put me at about 35 closings for the year. So that's really what I'm shooting for. And also with the pivot, again, I agree with Josh that you shouldn't necessarily lower your goals just because we're hit with some adversity. I think situations like this is what makes us stronger people, stronger agents, and, to lessen your goals would just hurt yourself. So sticking to those same goals with or without all this mess happening, and just continuing to push forward.
Okay, awesome. Alexander, how about you?
So I sold about 40 properties last in 2019, and my goal for this year was to actually pull back on that a little bit and focus a little bit more on my investments. I had a goal to flip 6 properties this year, and I wanted to sell still about 20 homes. So I was focusing on cutting back a little bit on my actual transactional side, so I could focus. Since there's so much money to be made in the strong market that we have in Central Ohio from the flip perspective, I thought that was a reasonable use of my time in that way. Maybe unlike, I forget who just spoke. I wasn't.
Greg.
Greg, I do prioritize my goals financially. I definitely am in this business to fund a better life, and so financial goals are my primary motivator. So that's why I wanted to focus a little bit stronger on my own investments.
Cool. So when you talk about being in a better place financially around by doing investments and actually selling fewer houses, why don't you maybe in 1 or 2 minutes explain the concept of that?
Sorry, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking how I'm going to make more money by selling fewer houses. Is that the question?
Yeah. So how do you, is it just the fact that a better life to you is like more of a work-life balance, or are you looking at it as a longer term play from purchasing investment properties?
Well, so it sounds a lot like there's a couple people on this panel who got into real estate because they were investors first, and then they wanted to get into the industry so they could manage their own investments a little bit more closely, and then they also sort of picked up the residential sales side aspect in addition to that. I came at it the opposite direction. I got into this primarily to be a consumer advocate and to work on behalf of clients, and then once I started making money, I thought, I'm working with a flipper right now who's doing all these fantastic deals. I could do that too. And so I started flipping properties, and actually on my application for this award, I had to talk about the most proud transaction I was most proud of. And it was actually my first ever flip that I actually did with fellow panelist here, Jill Richardson. She brought the buyer to my first flip that I did last year. And so that was a really cool, keep it in the family kind of situation. And to answer your question more directly, it can make a lot more money on the flips than on each individual transaction. And since I prioritize, I'm doing this as a job to make money, I wanted to focus more of my time on the highest income earner for myself, so that I could continue to travel and continue to show my dogs and to continue to do the things that actually I'm really excited and passionate about.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Sean, you're right under Alexander on my screen, so I'm just going
to. Sure. So I think setting goals and holding yourself accountable, and probably more importantly, having somebody to hold you accountable to those goals has been absolutely paramount in my success in real estate so far. I mean, I grew up in sports. We always had goals there, but for whatever reason, as I kind of progressed through life, kind of the idea of goals and having them kind of went to the wayside until I got involved in real estate, started working with my mentor and then my coach. And, Coldwell Banker has been very good with every October. We sit down, we set goals based on real numbers, for the coming year. And so we've got annual goals, but really kind of I focus on more of the quarterly goals and the monthly goals because at the end of the day, and those are all numbers based on units, listings, buyers, sellers, how many calls and touches am I making? Because those little things on a daily, weekly, monthly basis are what really ultimately get me to that end goal, which is number of units sold. And then, that goal of making a certain amount of money. But it's been, it's something that's part of my daily and weekly life now, is looking at goals, seeing where I'm at, and, continuing to work towards them. As far as the COVID thing, I haven't really made any adjustments. I'm still, I've talked with my team a couple of times. It's kind of up and down on emotionally as far as like what's going on, but we're still going to try to hit our goal this year and stay positive about it. I like what Josh said. We're not going to give up just because something's hard. We all know that real estate is not easy, so we're going to keep trucking along and trying to hit them.
Awesome. Amanda, how about you?
So I personally was kind of focused on doing about 30% more transactions this year and still hope to get that accomplished. I think that, this situation currently that we're in could cause that to be a little bit delayed. But I'm just planning on, working as hard as I need to whenever this whole situation passes over. I already feel that, even last year, like I pretty much work most of the time. Daytime, evenings, weekends, I'm pretty available to most of my clients whenever they want me to be there. And that's still my plan. So I'm not sure if I'll actually hit the goal this year just because of this. I feel like this is kind of a pretty significant interruption, but we'll do everything we can to do that.
Cool. Alexandra?
So I do base my goals on what I want to take home. And I look at what I did last year, what I want to do this year. So financially, I look at that and then I break it down and I do the math of, okay, here's my average commission. How many transactions is that? And I kind of make those my minimums. And then I just have those be the things I follow throughout the year. So I'll do every quarter, I'll check in and say, all right, where am I at? Like, what do I have in the pipeline? Because I don't ever want a client to feel like they're a number, not that any other way is, but that's just kind of how my brain works and what works for me. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And as far as COVID, my family, we have somebody in my house that is in that high risk category. So if anybody has it and comes here with it, it's a pretty big deal. So I'm not showing houses right now. I'm not going out of the house. Groceries are delivered. We wipe them down. I mean, it's pretty aggressive here. Nobody in or out. We're just the four of us here. My husband's a dentist and he's not working either. His office is closed, which is kind of nice. We're all able to fully quarantine. I think we're on day, I don't know, at this point, over 20, like 25, 6, 7, 8. So that's kind of where we're at. So for me, I don't know. I don't know what this year is going to be, to be quite honest. I would love to say I want to do X, Y, and Z with this year, but I really don't know because I have to put my family first. So
yeah,
that's where we're at.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Chris, how about you, man?
Yeah, I could probably talk for this entire thing about goals because I'm huge numbers, huge goals. I have goals for the team, for every individual agent, for my investing side, personally for net income and gross income. But 10,000 foot view is basically our team. We're looking to do 20 million in sales, 100 units this year, which would over double what we did last year. But I took the last year and a half off, not off, but scaled back a bit to rebuild the team and put structure in place so that when we built the team, it could do the things and the numbers that we wanted it to do. So 100 units, 20 million in sales. I'm looking to have a team of 6 to 10 agents. And I'm looking to flip 6 to 8 houses this year. And all that will equate to a good chunk of change, hopefully, and get me kind of, like I said, to a place that I never thought I could be when I did this, when I started doing this. As far as the response to COVID, I just kind of coaching my team on just making sure you're there for the internet leads, your past clients, your sphere of influence. Just be empathetic. Keep yourself educated on what's going on. I'm not changing too much. I actually am ramping up some lead spend just because I believe by the time this is all over in June, July, there's going to be a huge backlog of both buyers and sellers. So just staying on the phone, staying in contact, staying empathetic, staying knowledgeable, and just really focusing on being the knowledge broker. and getting a couple extra leads because everybody's at home. They got nothing else to do. So they're going to make their way to a real estate website. So I would say we're gonna ramp up some spending, probably increase it about 30% over here over the next 2 months or so, and hopefully capitalize and build pipelines over the next 2 months. I'm a firm believer that what you do over the next 30 to 90 days is really going to dictate your next year or two in real estate.
Awesome. That's great. I'm going to circle back around to everybody on the COVID, on what you're talking to people about around, scripting and conversation. The one thing though, that I'd like to talk about right now, just in a minute or so, you mentioned that you took like a year to a year and a half to kind of take a step back and reflect on what business had been like and what you feel like you needed to change in order to double in business, which it's one thing going from 5 to 10 units. It's another thing to go from 50 to 100 from a scalability perspective. I've done it. I know how hard it is. So what were the 1 or 2 things that you felt like from looking back on your business that you needed to change in order to be able to do that?
For me, probably number one, honestly, I left Remax Connection a little under 2 years ago and came over to CRT, and that was kind of the point where I redid everything. And quite honestly, for me, to do this to where we are now, it was my mindset was number one. Just getting in every day and doing the grind. I used to call leads 3 to 4 hours a day. I got burnt out on it. I hated being on the phone. So now I have an ISA who calls 20 hours a week for me and sets appointments for me personally. And it's just the training the agents, making sure when we're hiring agents, I probably interview 4 or 5 agents a month to join the team. We're up to 4 agents right now. Like I said, we like to be 6 to 10. But hiring for culture and not just for a body. I'm a pretty big believer that if you hire people you want to be around that are willing to learn and willing to work, that's more the culture you want. You can teach anybody really, as long as they want to learn and they want to be in your culture to do the job. It's not rocket science in my opinion. It's a grind. And if you're not grinding, you're not making the money you want to make, and you're not doing the thing. So for me, it was just mindset, and then just hiring for the right reasons when I was interviewing and hiring agents, just making sure that they knew that they had me whenever they needed me. We do 3-minute individual sessions bi-weekly. We have a team meeting every Monday. So just those little things. We set goals, 90-day goals, 30-day goals, yearly goals, all that kind of stuff. I'm very track and measurable.
Nice. One thing I'll tell you, and then I'll move on, is Tim Knight and Urban Meyer have a podcast called the Focus 3 Podcast, and they just released 2 episodes on culture, and they literally almost word for word said what you just said about hiring the right people for culture. So you definitely, if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, by the way, it's amazing, the Focus 3 Podcast. And Urban Meyer joined it after he retired as football coach. And so Tim Kite and his son were doing it up to that point. But those episodes are definitely ones you should check out, Chris. All right, Jill, you're up.
So, I've been in the business for 10 years, and I started out as an assistant and did a lot of like marketing and everything for my team lead. And so my early experience was more administrative before I started going out and like working my leads and everything. But for the most part, most of my business grew from being handed those leads from my team lead. So I wasn't doing a whole lot. I just counted on him to basically feed me. So when I left the team and I started to build my own business, I really had to buckle down because we did not have a system in place. He did not coach me on anything on how to, do it myself. So for the last 3 years or so, it's really been me. I feel like a brand new agent, to be honest, trying to build it out myself. So I really have had to do the very basic things like building a database, keeping in touch with the people in my database, figuring out who my, top 5 or 10 lead referral sources are, and really putting a lot of effort into maintaining those relationships. So really it's just been pretty basic for me. You know, the stuff that Keller Williams teaches us, starting out, just focusing on all of that fundamentally.
Okay, awesome. And Lauren, last but not least, goals for this year, and how are you being affected by the current situation?
Yeah, so our goals this year as a team was 150 units, which should be right around 30 million. Individually, my business partner and I each want to do 60 units for 12 million. So the gap of that 9 million is going to be, you know, brought in by the team. We have seen some lost business, but we are just keeping, you know, everyone as educated as we can as to what's going on, supporting them any way we can, doing virtual tours, FaceTime walkthroughs, which are a lot harder than you would think, because if you go in the basement, you lose connection and it's really frustrating. But we're doing everything that we can, you know, having gloves and sanitizer and just showing everyone that, you know, we're here to help them however we can. And we know too that the lost business isn't lost business. It's just not right now. So, you know, we're kind of getting ready for that July, August time where everybody is going to, you know, once all this passes, everybody's going to kind of get back on the train and start looking at houses again. So, yeah.
Were we going to add our 10th panelist? Yeah. What's up, buddy?
Say hi.
Okay, cool. So I actually would like to pivot, and I know I sent out a lot of questions, but I just think after hearing you guys talk, most of you said that you don't really see a lot changing in terms of your goals. And I know, Chris, you in particular mentioned that you're going to, like, you know, increase your ad spend. And I think from everything I've been reading and listening to, you know, the conversation is definitely around, you know, in order to get the same results, we're going to have to double down on lead generation of some kind. Because honestly, the people that are working right now are the ones that are going to come out when everything does release, and they're going to be getting the business. And those of us that aren't are going to be, you know, 3 months away from business, just like people that take off all of December and then wonder why January is slow, right? So if one of you guys just wants to jump in, what are you guys saying to people right now? Because I know certainly, I feel like it's loosened up a little bit, but certainly those first couple weeks of all of this, there was like a lot of pushback, I think, from the public about saying anything other than how are you doing? So are you guys calling people and just checking in on them? Are you having the same conversations you were having before?
I have been watching. So I have 3 active listings right now that are not getting showings, and so I've been following sort of the general trends about what's going on in terms of the number of showings. And from, I think, the beginning of March until the end of March, we saw about a 50% drop off MLS wide in the number of showings that was happening on a weekly basis. But in the last week, showings have gone up about 20% over the previous week. So we're still down in the number of showings that are happening citywide, but we're on a recuperative trend right now, which I think is really hopeful. But what I was, to answer your question, what I've been telling people, so I'm not actively lead generating right now. I'm focusing mostly on just communicating with my sphere. But every time I've spoken to somebody who was planning to list either April or May, we're having very honest conversations about what it looks like to list your house right now versus what it might look like to list your house in June. And I have had honest conversations with people that have houses in the $400,000 to $500,000 range that it might not be right to list your house right now, given the fact that the number of showings at that price point is so dramatically low as a result of a number of situations that are going on globally and locally. So I'm telling people, some people I'm telling them to wait, some people I'm telling them to go ahead and list their property, but that's sort of what
So to put it in a nutshell, it'd be fair to say that you're just having really honest conversations primarily with people that you've already had some kind of relationship with.
Yeah, so these are all people that have been in my pipeline for 6 to 12 months who, were waiting for the spring of 2020 to list their house, and people who have been waiting, doing renovations, fixing up their house, whatever the case may be. I'm just honestly, I'm using my own expertise, whatever that is, and giving them as much data as I can and telling them what I think is the honest truth about whether they would be better off listing now or in a month or two.
Okay, awesome. Is anybody calling people that, by a show of hands of the panelists, how many people, or even the people that aren't panelists, I'd love to see you raise your hand. How many people are calling people that they don't know right now? Josh? All right, buddy, you're the lucky winner. Tell us who you're calling and what you're saying to them.
It's more just kind of the cold calling. In order to, I think what I've learned over the past couple of years is you have to do the things that a lot of other people are unwilling to do. And so cold calling, although the ROI is very low, there is a return of some semblance there. So, you know, whether that's through a power dialer or whatever it may look like, cold calling around listings to try and drum up additional listings and or buyers has proven somewhat fruitful for me in the past. So continuing that and just getting my contacts in, like, you know, you got to set a goal, like somebody was saying earlier, you got to set a goal around contacts per week. You can't just let it be with, you know, contacting a person that you know is going to be a 20-minute phone call perhaps versus somebody who maybe you're just, you know, prospecting for business. So you can get a lot more contacts in that way, though they may not be as fruitful.
Okay. So when you say cold calling, just real quick, I'd love for you to define. So are you just doing like just listed, just sold calls, or is it like internet lead calls, or what does that consist of for you?
I do have internet leads that I'm paying for as well. And I'm seeing still activity there, quite a bit. Not much of a slowdown. But yeah, just listed, just sold, and cold calling in my eyes, people that I don't know. So I do a geographic search of the area to come up with phone numbers and then call around that area.
And what's been the response that you've been getting from people when you get a hold of them and ask them, like, what's your script, if you don't mind me just like role playing real quick? So you call me, I answer hello. What are you saying?
Yeah. Hey, hey man, I've got a listing that just came up on 123 Main Street, and you know, instead of doing an open house, we're going to be doing a virtual tour due to all that's happening in the you know, the current environment. And so you know, I'd love to, if you know of any neighbors or friends or family that are interested in getting into the area, I would love to get them my contact information and see where that goes. Now, I do get a lot of hangups. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The ROI, like I said, is not great, but you've got to be a person of action if you want to see results.
So do you feel like you're seeing more hangups and more upset people now than you were before, or is it about the same?
No, it's probably the same, maybe a little bit less. I think people might be bored. I don't know.
Okay.
Stuck at home, maybe you want to talk to somebody.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So is anybody else doing like calls to not Mets, or are you guys primarily focused on care call styles? I can't remember which one of you called it a care call to people that you already know, like your past clients and sphere.
I just emailed my entire sphere in the first week or two when this all happened, just to let them know that we are still working, you know, and that we're there for them if they have any questions. I mean, me personally, I'm still willing to show a house. In fact, I showed a couple last week, but I take the gloves and the sanitizer and all that. And then with my internet leads, for me, they've slowed down. But when I do get them, I'm calling them and texting them just to, you know, excuse me, try to keep things in my pipeline. So
definitely. So panelists or guests, how many of you guys, by a show of hands, are texting, and how many of you are calling? So let's first raise your hand if you're texting. And then how many people are also calling?
It's right. I had one thing in there, like mixing texting with video, I found to be really fruitful. So if you can either just film a video on your phone and text that over, or you can use an app like BombBomb, which has been really great. You get a much higher return rate on things like video, in my opinion.
Okay, awesome. Sean, I saw you thumbs up. Do you use video as well?
Yeah, I have actually spent the past week or so contacting past clients, all my sphere. I mean, hundreds of video texts to where my arms like shaking here. But it's actually been really cool. I've got a lot of responses. People have sent videos back to me and said, you know, hey, this is almost like having a conversation live. And it's just a way, since I can't, you know, see most of my sphere or people in there, to be able to see them in a sense, kind of like this video does too. So it's been very effective, and it's just a little bit of a different touch.
Cool. Alexandra, I'd love to jump to you because I recognize, like, with the health issues, and I know those are legitimate concerns, obviously, and some of us have a lot higher risk situations than others. So are you partnering up with somebody to do those showings if necessary, or are you telling your clients, hey, sorry, but we're just out right now? Or what does that look like for you, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, no, I'm actually part of a team. So there's 3 full-time agents, and we have a client care coordinator. So right now we're just putting our heads down and doing the work. So like cleaning our profiles, tightening up our marketing, redoing some stuff that we have the time for, since our clients are kind of like maybe later clients now. So yeah, if a client called me and said, I want to see this house, I've got 2 other agents who I'd either just give it to or partner with, or, you know, we always tag team and help each other out anyway. So yeah, I'll probably stay full quarantine until my doctor his doctor tells us we're good to go and we're in the clear. But I do think that we're going to see a surge. So I, even though I am here in my house quarantining myself, I mean, we have office hours where our team is working together 5 days a week. We huddle, we do a whole bunch of stuff to just do the work now. And we might not be cold calling people, but we are still actively pulling people into our database, running ads, and just coming from a space of value, because there are different levels of people's comfort with COVID. Some people are terrified. Some people are like, meh, it's fine. I don't need a mask. I'll just go and see 10 houses today. So I think we're trying to be conscious of that and just provide value. So if you are looking to do something this year, here are resources for you in a space where it's specific to them, and hyper local for that person. It's not, I wouldn't call it clickbait in the sense, but we just want to, if we're going to do that video, if we're going to send that email, we want to have a few pieces, a few layers essentially of information where we would be able to still keep our faces in front of them, keep value in front of them, and just be helpful. I think I answered your question, but then kind of went off on a tangent.
No, I think that was all good stuff. A lot of questions that people have. So Amanda and Jill, I think you guys are the newest in terms of license time, maybe you too, Josh, but I'd love to go to you guys. What would you, let's start with Amanda. What advice would you give somebody who's newer into the business? And then for you in particular, since you were an investor first, I would love to hear too at the end what advice you would give to agents who are working with investors as to, is now still a good time to invest, particularly on the flip side, you know, with flips.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as far as new agents go, one bit of advice I usually tell people that I encounter that are new is just to be really involved. You know, one of the most impactful things for me has been being very involved, a lot of networking. I think I'm maybe a little different, that I focus maybe slightly less on social media, which I'm realizing in this era, since we're not able to be in person meeting with people, that may be a little bit more of a disadvantage than I thought it was. But I've just been, you know, really focused these last few years on just interacting with people, getting to know people more on a like personal level. So that's typically what I advise new people to do. You know, get involved in your area association, get to know lenders, get to know title people, because you're going to need to know all of those people. You're going to need to know a lot of them, you know, for different options for different people. So that's one thing that I usually advise new people to do, that's been helpful to me. And then in the investment realm, you know, it's kind of hard to say. I'm overall optimistic about our real estate market, but I'm also aware that, you know, we might see some shifts in the market. We might see a few more opportunities to get properties at, you know, a good investment price. In regards to flips, I mean, it just kind of really is going to depend on how strong our market recovers when this is all over. I definitely agree with everyone else that I think that we're going to see, you know, obviously the busy season is going to be pushed back a little bit, but I do think that there are a lot, you know, here in Ohio, we're just coming out of winter in itself. So we already had pent up energy. And I think after all of this is over, we're going to have a lot of people coming out, a lot of activity. So it just is partially going to depend on how long this whole, you know, downtime is going to last, what the overall effect is going to be on the economy. I think here in Central Ohio, you know, when we did go through the last recession, not to say that we are going to go through one again, but I think Ohio and especially Columbus kind of held together a little bit better than a lot of other places in the country. So even if things get a little hairy, I think we'll still, you know, remain strong. I'm obviously a big advocate for investing in real estate. So I definitely think that, you know, even when the market was a little higher, like it has been, and probably will be again, I still think it's a great time to invest. Columbus is a great market to invest in, generally speaking. So yeah, to answer your question about flips, I don't personally have as much experience personally flipping. We haven't flipped anything ourselves. We're buy and hold investors, so that's what I'm more familiar with. And I always think that's a good idea.
I agree. So Jill, I apologize. I misspoke. I know you're not brand new, but you talked about how you feel like you've kind of had to restart your business. So from that like perspective, I'd love to hear like what advice would you give somebody who's in a similar situation to you, kind of building that foundation, and what they should be doing right now to make sure with the changing market that we're in, that they come out the other side, you know, rolling.
Yeah, so I've actually been mentoring some agents in my office who are brand new also. So it's actually been great for me because I'm going through the process and I'm doing it, working my database and figuring out how to do, you know, a system of touches with those people and categorizing them. So for instance, like in my own database right now, I've identified all of the healthcare workers and medical workers and EMTs, firefighters, et cetera. So I'm doing a big push, kind of like a care call or care text, whatever you want to call it, with them specifically, where I sent out, you know, paper cards to them. I've sent them texts. I connected with all of them that I could on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. So identifying groups and trying to, like, you know, call them out, thank them, et cetera, has been one of the things that I've been doing. One of the other ones is some of the agents that I'm mentoring, telling them to become experts by, you know, talking to the lenders. I've introduced them to several lenders because I know a lot of different lenders have different products or have connections with for mortgage brokers, for instance, with their lenders, who some of them are lending down to, you know, a 550 credit score. And some of them won't lend below a 640 or 660. So finding people to help the people, you know, who might come out as leads in your sphere, to make sure that you have the information and you can proactively reach out to them and tell them, hey, you know, if you or anybody you know is interested in buying a house, here's what we're seeing in the market right now with regard to getting a loan. And I have connections with this broker and this broker and this broker. You know, if you know anybody in these credit score ranges, or you yourself are, you know, I can connect you with the right people. So for me, it's been a lot, in this particular situation, it's been a lot of plugging people in where I can and being an expert on, you know, what's happening right now with regard to buying and selling.
Nice. Lauren, I'm going to jump over to you in a second about social media, so get ready. But Chris, I wanted to stop with you while we're still on the conversation of what we're doing and what conversations, because I know you mentioned that you have an ISA. So I'd love to hear, obviously, his or her entire job is essentially talking to people that they don't know and teeing them up for your agents. So how, if at all, have you changed the scripting around that conversation since all this started?
Yeah, so Ed is his name. He calls canceled and expired listings, any kind of listing lead that I get through various sources, referral exchange, agent pronto, just some of these free sources you get, anything I get through our online CRM, which is KV Core. If I get a lead personally that went cold on me, he calls. So his sole purpose for being there is because I know I won't be consistent with it. I hit the phones hard for 2 to 3 years. When I first started, I was calling 3 to 4 hours a day. Made my living on Realtor and Zillow leads when they were actually, in my opinion, somewhat good back then, 2013, 2014. So I was on the phone 3 to 4 days, got on the phone as quick as I could. So his purpose is because I know I'm not going to be consistent on it. He calls for 2 to 4 hours a day on these leads, gives me an end of day report of how many calls he makes, how many answers he gets, all that kind of stuff. So we've been talking over the last few weeks of, obviously I want appointments. So he's setting maybe 1, maybe 2 appointments per week if we're lucky. Some are virtual, some are still in person. When we're in person, we take precautions, but I've kind of coached him on kind of shifting it to, yes, if you can get the appointment, let's get the appointment, but let's just be an advocate, a helper, let these people know that we're here for them, not necessarily set the appointment like we were doing January, February. Like I'm telling my team, let's be an advocate, let's be a knowledge broker, let's be an empathetic person. Again, people are sitting at their house, they want people to talk to. So that's kind of, it's not necessarily a script. I like scripts. I do like scripts. I'm not a huge script person as far as by the book scripts. Here's a script, put your twist on it. How does the conversation go? Go from there, and kind of have a couple different ways to go with it. So that's
Chris,
kind of what
I don't know you very well. I don't think we've actually ever met, and yet I think you can handle this. So I would love to do a quick role play with you, because I think that would be super valuable for everybody. I'll be easy on you, I promise. But I want to be an expired listing seller that expired, or a canceled seller that canceled back in the fall, that isn't even thinking about selling their house, and how you approach that conversation. So you just know that my house canceled last October, and there's not very many new listings in my neighborhood. So hello?
Can I phone a friend? Because I don't do these very often at all.
No,
really.
Come on, you can do it. So, all right. Hello?
Hey, Troy, this is Chris with CRT Realtors. Saw that your listing had expired. Wanted to see if you're still in the market to possibly sell. I know there's a lot of things that have happened over the last few months. We're having great success with our marketing. Our days on market are low. You have a hot neighborhood. We have a lot of buyers that are looking in the neighborhood. So just kind of wanted to pick your brain, see where you are with looking about getting back to the market.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. Is it a good, I mean, are you having a lot of success calling people like around this time? Isn't it kind of sensitive?
Yeah, it's a hit or miss situation right now, but what we're trying to do is just, educate people on what the market's doing. There's a lot of, misinformation that's out there. So we're here, we're boots on the ground every single day in all the areas of Columbus. So just wanted to reach out to you, let you know kind of what's going on in your area, let you know the successes that we are having as a team, and see if there's a time that we can sit down with you and go over all that.
Oh, okay. I see. So are houses actually selling right now?
Yeah, houses are selling. We have seen a little tick up in inventory. I've been monitoring it over the last few weeks, and I think from 3 weeks ago, our inventory is up about 10%, but we're still drastically low. 10% uptick puts us about 3,100, 100 houses on the market. A healthy market right now, we should be about 6,000, 6,500 houses. So we still are very low, about a 1.5 to 2-month inventory level right now. So it's still a very good seller's market. And also on the buy side, interest rates are extremely low. So there are plenty of buyers out there.
All right, awesome. Great job. I really believe that 9 out of 10 calls are going to go exactly like that. And I think people have a fear that somebody's going to hang up, and kind of like, I think it was Josh or Sean, one of you guys said that people just kind of want to talk to people in some cases. So you do have to be careful. I don't think any of you guys were in real estate in 2008. Well, Alexander, you were kind of, but definitely there are a lot more tire kickers. And my prediction, this is just personal prediction, is that that people are going to slowly re-enter society, and that there's going to be a group of tire kickers once you guys all feel comfortable going out, that are going to think it's really fun to call agents that need business and get them to go show them houses, and they're not going to be serious. And so the advantage to having those people is that people will talk to you, but you do need to make sure you're qualifying people, because I think there's going to be some people on the other side of this that are going to be comfortable seeing people that are going to be willing to waste your time. So Lauren, I want to go next to you around social media, because I know you guys do a lot of social media, and just kind of talk about how your message has changed, if at all, since all of this happened.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has changed. We focus primarily on social media. We don't do cold calls. We do Facebook ads for our listings, and obviously call people who inquire about them, but we don't do cold calls or anything like that. So our social media has changed in the fact of, updating. I don't know if any of you follow me, but I've been doing like daily or weekly, branded, here's how many houses went on the market, here's how many closings there were, here's how many we have pending, just to kind of show people that the real estate market is still going, because I think a lot of people just assume that, when there's people losing their jobs or being furloughed or whatever, it kind of comes to a halt. So just educating everyone as much as we can on that. We've actually put 2 in contract last week off virtual tours on our social media. We picked up a client a listing coming up that she was like, I don't want anyone in my house, but we can get everything going for right now, virtually with that. So I think just showing people our personality, showing them we're human and we're here, and we're willing to do whatever we can to help them, has definitely, I would say our reach has increased. We've had a lot more people reaching out to us, just being transparent and us. I think Troy's frozen.
Troy, you frozen? Oh.
Anybody else want to talk about what they're doing social media wise until Troy gets back in?
I made a goal this year to really take the next step in social media, and I'm encouraging the people that I'm coaching to do the same thing, because right now people are cooped up in their homes, right? I mean, there's nowhere to go, so I'm sure you're getting bored pretty more frequently than you were in the past. There's less actual physical work at a physical office, so I'm sure your mind is going to wander onto the social media a little bit more frequently. So I'm glad I did this at the start of the year, but I'm trying to post every single day on one medium or the other. So I kind of have a system laid out every day what I'm going to post around, and it's not all real estate related. I think that's super important to let people into who you are. So I've got 2 kids, and I use the crap out of them. Like, people love kids, right? So every time I go out and I meet with people, they're like, hey, I saw this happen to your kid. By the way, tell me about the housing market. So it's a really good relationship builder. And at the end of the day, that's what we're really supposed to be doing, is building relationship. That's going to encourage, future business. So I'd encourage you, if you're not using social media, at the start, it took me maybe 5 to 10 minutes per day to kind of get that post put up. But once you get cranking, you can really get into a rhythm and you start to systematize it. You can do it pretty quickly. And the return on the investment is great, because there's no investment other than your time. It's free for the most part.
So I'm following along in the chat here, and I see that Teresa Kenny asked a question about what social media platforms Lauren Lucas is using. Lauren, would you talk a little bit more about what things you do on the different platforms?
Yeah, so our social media, I would say between Jen and I, we spend a good 40 hours a week. It's a full-time job, keeping up with everything, creating the content. I've gotten into using iMovie now, so we'll cut everything, shoot all the videos, cut everything, put it together, put the music behind it, brand it. But we use Instagram. Jen actually just finished her flip. We just closed on it last week. She sold it off of Instagram. Her stories, she started a hashtag for it. People started following the hashtag Betsy614, and she sold it off Instagram. So we're really focusing on just giving people, you know, content that they want to see. We never do like, you know, just a picture of a house with a sold sign on it, you know, for social media. It's always a story. Every client, every house has a story, and that really gets people engaged in it. As far as Facebook goes, I prefer Facebook to Instagram just because I know it. It's been around longer. I've been using it longer. But the Instagram stories are only up for 24 hours. So it's kind of nice to show our personality and put stuff up there. We check our insights and stuff to see what days and times we're supposed to be posting, where people are coming from, when they're looking, stuff like that. And we've really noticed in the last, you know, 6 months that the stories get a lot more traction, a lot more engagement than the posts do. As far as LinkedIn, we were really good about it last year. We kind of shuffled away from it because, like I said, it's just a full-time job. But just trying to stay, I write a blog, just trying to stay current and giving, you know, content out there. I put the blog on Facebook. I put it on our website. I put it on LinkedIn. I put it on Pinterest. I've actually gotten a lot of followers for the blog. I think I'm at like 1,100 or 1,200 followers right now for the blog. I've gotten a lot of them off Pinterest. So if you are blogging or doing anything, you know, taking real estate photography, anything like that, I would definitely recommend Pinterest too. Snapchat is more for my sphere. I don't add a bunch of people, but just to show them kind of what we're doing. If we go into, you know, a beautiful house or have beautiful views, downtown condos, stuff like that, it just kind of reminds them that we are in real estate. And again, just looking for those direct messages, those mentions, things like that. We have found too, we do house anniversary cards, house anniversary cards, birthday cards, congratulations cards. We're doing care packages for first responders, a lot of stuff like that. And that actually, with our sphere being mostly who we sell to, we're getting a lot of people tagging us in that too, which is also good content because then we're hitting their entire sphere too. So, you know, if we send them a birthday card, they'll snap a picture on Instagram and just be like, you know, thanks LKW Home Team for thinking of me. And then we share that out too. So we do a little bit different on every platform, but it's just, you know, staying consistent and staying front of mind for people being a realtor.
I have a question if I can interrupt, going off of what you were saying with you kind of make everything a story. I definitely love that, but how do we do that? And sorry if it's something that should be common knowledge, I don't know this. Say for instance, you know of a coming soon and you have, you know, the coming soon documents signed up front. Are you able to go through and kind of give like a coming soon, hey, this is a quick little virtual tour, a story behind your coming soon versus just a picture of the house with your coming soon on it?
Yeah, we have obviously asked permission of our sellers, but we will shoot the video and then we use a app called Majesto to kind of put a little flair in it and brand it. And then we use an app called Cut Story. So Instagram stories are only 15 seconds each. So if we shoot like a minute video, we throw it in the Cut Story and it cuts it up for us. And then we have, you know, what is that? 5, 6 different stories to add in there. So we can show the whole video through the story, even though it doesn't allow more than 15 seconds at a time.
So we are okay with doing that as coming soon, even though it's not on the MLS yet as a coming soon. I just don't want to get fined for like posting out there. And so I just want to make sure I do it.
Yeah, we don't do like a full walkthrough or anything like that. It's more of us just giving, you know, hey, we've got a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom coming in Westerville, you know, something like that. And just, like I said, we do a lot more of showing our personality and our story and our client story and stuff like that more than here's the house. It's going to hit the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just how we do it. And I know I can't speak on, all the legalities of it, but I know the coming soon stuff is changing soon too. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect.
Yeah, April, I was just going to say that just make sure you're following the clear cooperation, which I think goes into effect on May 1st. You only have 24 hours if you start anything on it. So if you're going to do it, it has to be it has to be into the MLS loaded within 24 hours. And even an Instagram story, they'll be able to track that back. So just watch that legality of that part of it, because you will get fined.
Right.
I appreciate that, because I never want to get fined, so
They're not
just want
fun.
to double check. No.
As I understand it, though, with that clear cooperation agreement, it's like it's property specific, meaning if you're talking general terms about I have a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house coming up in Westerville, that doesn't actually trigger the 24-hour input in the MLS rule. It's only if you tell the address of the property. But maybe I'm wrong about that. That's how I've been sort of explained the situation.
Yeah, I don't think that that Columbus Realtors actually has given us clear guidance yet, unless somebody else saw it and I didn't. Has anybody seen anything come from Columbus Realtors yet?
Something came through the other day that said the policy has been approved. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I watched the video from a week or two ago when they were talking about it. I would say just err on the side of caution so you don't get fined.
Yeah, definitely.
If anything you do, until they figure it all out, like Troy said, because there's going to be a learning curve for everybody.
Cool. Well, yeah, sorry guys. Literally since this happened, I've been working from home. I have not one time had my internet go out. And of course it happens right in the middle of this panel. So I appreciate you guys continuing to roll. One great question that was in the chat before I cut out that I'd love just kind of like a quick 30-second answer from each of you guys is, what's your prediction? And this is obviously, as much fact-based as it can be, but what's your prediction on the market by the end of 2020? Do you see it going up, down, or staying even? So Alexander, I'll start with you. You're first in my line.
I think what we're facing right now is a significant interrupter, and I think that it's going to result in the market being off a little bit this year.
Do you see that off in terms of sales or price or both?
I think we're going to see I think in Columbus proper, we're probably not going to see the price hit as much. I think in the suburbs, we might see a higher hit on prices, but I think number of sold units is actually what's going to go down.
Okay, awesome. Josh, what's your prediction?
I think I agree with Alexander.
Okay, Greg?
I honestly think everything is really going to boom once this all ceases. I think businesses, restaurants, bars, real estate, I think it's all going to boom and end up being an awesome year, honestly.
Okay. Obviously, the length of that is going to determine the total sales, right? I mean, if this lasts until July, it's going to be hard to make up the total sales between August and December, but
I especially think that's the case when we're talking about school district shoppers. If we're going to lose an entire school district shopping season, we're going to see a big drop in the number of houses that sell in places that have highly desirable school districts. That's just what I am suspecting.
That's a great point. Yeah, if it goes beyond June and people can't get moved before the school year, it's going to be taken back to the need versus the want is going to completely disappear. Yeah. Sean, how about you? You're muted.
Sorry, Troy. I stepped out for just a second. What was the?
So do you think at the end of 2020 market from a sales and price perspective, you can look at them separately if you want. Do you see those going up, down, or even between now and the end of the year?
I think the overall sales will likely be down. Just because of what, we're in the middle of. I think price is going to continue to be strong and will probably increase. I don't think price is going to be affected, in my humble opinion. So I think the market's going to be strong, but as others have mentioned, due to, I mean, we're losing, we've lost, no matter what we say, people are still probably buying and, well, I know they're buying and selling, but some of those people are on hold or have been affected more drastically. So we're going to lose some potential sales at the end of the year.
Okay. Alexandra, what do you think?
I kind of agree with everybody, but I also think once all this kind of dissipates a little bit and we're allowed to get out of our houses, we're going to see that surge. And I feel like in the meetings I've been to across the board, people are like projecting July. So hopefully there will still be time for people to do that that school district move come July and August. But yeah, I don't know. I've also heard other things where we might have another surge of this come fall. So I think it's something that we'll have to monitor almost like on a weekly basis, where we look at the market, we just kind of educate people and just see how long this lasts. But I do think it's going to be interesting. But hopefully we do see the surge so people can do what they need to do. And hopefully it doesn't come back.
Cool. Jill, what do you think? You're muted.
Sorry.
You're okay.
I agree with the majority on this, and I do think that we're going to see the numbers dip. I know for me personally, pretty much all of my buyers are on hold right now, either because their pre-approval was at a different credit score, and now since lenders have tightened that up, their pre-approval is kind of null and void for the time being, or they've lost their jobs and therefore aren't purchasing until this is over and they get another job. And sellers, some of the price points that I work in are like over 350,000. So same as Alexander said earlier, if it's in that higher price point, I've been telling people maybe it's best to hold off until this passes so we get more of a surge of qualified buyers in. So, I think it's going to dip for a little bit, and I don't know if I believe 100% that it's going to bounce back to the level that it was at.
Yeah, I've heard some opinions recently around until there's a vaccine, are you going to recommend that your family goes to a movie and sits right next to somebody they don't know, or sit in a booth at a restaurant not knowing how well it was cleaned if you haven't gotten it yet? And those were kind of like reality checks for me, like, no, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think until there's a vaccine or some kind of way that you can guarantee that where you're going in public doesn't have the virus sitting on it, will probably, they'll be slow. I do think though, real estate, because you can buy and sell real estate without coming into contact with a lot of people, as long as we're smart, could be one of those things that comes back a little bit sooner. But the effect on like bars and restaurants not having the business and the trickle down in terms of other jobs, certainly could have that effect. I agree with you. Chris, what do you think? You sound like a big numbers guy, so I'm interested to hear your analysis.
Yeah, I actually pulled up a slide that I have. So I'm in Tom.
You want to share your screen?
It's on my cell phone. I don't know if you can really see it, but I'm in Tom Ferry coaching, and I'm in their track to be a Tom Ferry coach. So they had they do a lot with Steve Harney with Keeping Current Matters. So I'm looking at, and this is just purely like the prices of houses. So over the last 5 recessions, we've only had 3 drops in the last 5 recessions, and one was the housing crisis in 2008. The other was in 91, and it dropped 1.9%. Every other time it's been in a recession of some sort, housing prices have went up at least 3.5%. So seeing of that's obviously a national stat. My personal thoughts are it's kind of a cop-out, I guess, but I just think it's too early to know, really. I mean, we're only 3 weeks into this. If the ban gets lifted in May 1st, we're still hitting the people that are buying for school district. We're still hitting them right in the meaty part of their season. If this goes till the middle of June, it's going to have an effect. So I'm taking the easy way out. I think it's just way too easy to way too early right now to really dictate. I know myself and my team, we came out of this year like gangbusters. I mean, we're already almost to last year's numbers. Since this shelter in place has happened, we've put 5 in contract, and I've got 4 new listings coming. So it's hard to say because I don't know what everybody else's individual business looks like. I think it'll, for the bigger agents that are doing a ton of business, I don't know how long you'll see a slowdown. All in all, Columbus is a younger city with a lot of Fortune 500 companies with a lot of good things going for it. So I don't know it's going to I don't know that it'll hit us as drastic as it will most places around the country. So I feel pretty confident moving forward. But again, if we're in shelter in place until the middle of June, that drastically changes everything. So there's a lot of moving components. Lending is tightening up. Well, how do people that lost their jobs, once they get a new job, can they get lending right away? Will lending loosen up a little bit? How will rates be doing? I mean, there's just so many moving parts that just need to shake themselves out before I think we can really say what we think is going to happen, at least me personally.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren.
Just say my name. Sorry.
Yep.
Just based off of the buyers that we've had backing out or slowing down right now, I think that there is going to be a surge when all this is over because everyone's going to go back out and start looking again. But I think a lot of it's going to depend on, did people get furloughed? How much income did they lose? Did they lose their jobs? Are they going to qualify? Not having income, did they rack up, a bunch of debt that their debt to income isn't going to qualify them anymore? So I really think that it just depends on kind of the caliber of buyer. And how supported their job is. I know we do a lot of first-time home buyers, so it's kind of 50-50. It's a toss-up, A lot of them are young, haven't been at their jobs a very long time, so it just depends.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, Amanda, last but not least.
Yes, so I pretty much agree with everyone else that I think that overall, at the end of the year, we are going to see fewer sales total just because we can't take out the busiest part of the year and not see that impact the overall numbers. And I want to remain optimistic that our market, I mentioned this before, that our market will bounce back. I'm not entirely sure if I feel like that's going to happen by the end of this year, or it might be, within a year or two that we'll come back to the levels that we are right now. Overall, I do feel like we will. It's just how long is that going to take? And I agree with what Chris said. Like, I also kind of think it's too early to tell. How long are we going to be in this sort of downtime where we're recommended to stay at home? And like Alexandra mentioned, once we are all let back out and everybody rushes out and starts going back to restaurants and things, what if this all does kind of flare back up again? So it's kind of too early to say, I think. But in the long run, I'm optimistic about our Columbus market. I think it's a great place to be, and it's just a matter of how long are we going to be kind of on a little bit of a pause right now. And yeah, I've seen a lot of my buyers kind of back off right at the moment, and I'm also concerned about the people who would be like tomorrow's first-time home buyers, the people that have been saving to move into their first home, and they might be unemployed right now, and that's going to delay them even further from entering into the market. So
yeah, no, I agree. Kim asked a great question. Maybe we can just do like a raising of hands. How many of you, if you had a seller in the 500K or above price point, would recommend that they list now? Raise your hand. And non-panelists can raise their hand if they want. You would recommend they list now?
I think the fact that the house is vacant is playing into my thought process.
Okay. And then how many would say wait? How many would say it depends on the seller's situation? Yeah, I would say I'll just throw my 2 cents in for 2 seconds, and I promise I won't do this again because I can talk forever. Is I think now as an agent who has been licensed since 2004 and went through the entire shift of 2008, I think we've gotten spoiled a little bit in the fact that we can price listings wherever we want and just adjust with the market. And like, who cares if you're right? I think now more than ever, two things are super important. Number one, motivation. And I think anything over 400,000, if you're not having a conversation about what the current market is like and the dangers of overpricing, you're putting yourself in a situation to look really bad. So I know there's one book that references that a lot. It's called Shift. You can go check that out. Or there's several other books that, you know, I mean, we have been in an amazing market for a really long time in the country, but certainly in Central Ohio, where we really haven't had to worry too much about pricing. But I think in those upper price ranges, you know, with the activity, somebody put in there, Chris, I think you did, looking at the trends over the last 3 weeks. If anybody wants the numbers, I've been tracking the percentage of properties that have been selling that have been listed in the last 7 days, and then also looking at different price ranges. And the upper price range is like less than 10% of the houses that are over 500 have been selling in 7 days versus in the 250, which that's always been true to an extent. But certainly, even when you look at the areas that are moving, like Upper Arlington is not, in terms of the newer listings, they're just not selling right away, versus Hilliard's been one of the leaders in terms of like almost 50% of their houses are selling within the first week. So just being cognizant of that, I think, is super important, and being real with your seller about like, hey, this may not be as easy as I told you it was 4 weeks ago when we first met. All right, what else? What other questions? Does anybody else have any questions for the Q&A? Do any of the panelists, did anybody not get a chance to talk about something that they really wanted to talk about?
Troy, I think you just kind of hit on something very big. Is we've been in such a good market for so many years now that I think now is really a good time to start showing our value even more and educating buyers and sellers when you go to sit down with them. I know we've had a couple buyers in the last week or so that have said they were going to put their buying on hold because of everything that's going around. And when we drilled down to what the root of the problem was, is that they thought they were going to be they were going to have to put too much cash down to put 20% down. So we educated them that you can put 3.5% or 5% down. And then I've gone on a couple of different listing appointments lately, and I'm having to tell the sellers, like, this is a day-to-day, hour-to-hour thing. I can't promise you what this is going to look like tomorrow. So just educating them on all of the moving parts of what the market looks like on the sales side, but then also making sure your buyers understand they don't need 20% down. So I think this is kind of where we have to take back and really show the value over the next few months, weeks, however much longer this takes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And, you know, I heard a lot of you guys say it without saying it, but the phrase that comes to mind that I've heard a lot of and heard a lot about during the shift of 08 to 11 was that as agents, it's our job to be the economist of choice in our marketplace. And if you've been able to live in this business without understanding your numbers and understanding that you have to go look at showing time to check and see how many showings have been happening in that price range. You have to go look at trend graphics or look at the MLS and see what's been happening. Because when inventory increases like it has, absorption rates have lowered in those higher price ranges. You don't price against the solds. You actually now need to start pricing against the actives, because if there's only one house selling per month in the 500 to 700 price range in a given area, then you can't afford to just be priced well compared to the solds. You have to be priced better than every other house that's active on the market right now. And so it's definitely shifting our mindset in a really short amount of time, because 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't have necessarily thought about that. We would have been worried about whether it was going to appraise at what we were listing it for. All right, awesome. Well, it is 1:59. Does anybody else? I'll give anybody else the last chance to speak your mind. No? All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate you guys jumping on. I think we had a ton of great information for people. I am going to have a recording of this from Zoom. So I would be, if you guys feel, it's probably easier to just throw it onto YouTube, and then I'll send it to all you guys who are panelists, but anybody else that might want it, feel free to shoot me an email. And I'll be happy to send the link to you, and I'll probably post it in Facebook as well. So I really appreciate you guys coming. Appreciate the panelists for sharing your knowledge. You guys were awesome, and wish you guys all the best in this market.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks, Troy.
You're welcome. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Troy.